Hey everyone, I just thought I'd spend a little bit of time going over the tyre sets and pit stop strategy stuff for this upcoming race on Sunday. I'll try and keep it pretty simple, but I think it's important to understand how the tyre sets work. So ignore what's on the screen on the right hand side with the sessions. I'm just running this to be able to demonstrate. So basically what we're going to have on Sunday for the whole session, practice, quali and the race, we're going to have 5 tyre sets. Alright, and you can use them throughout all of those sessions. But what I would recommend is planning it this way. Using tyre set 1 for practice, using tyre set 2 for quali, and then using tyre set 3 to start the race on, using tyre set 4 for your first pit stop, using tyre set 5 for your second pit stop if you're going to run 2. So that being said, I think the easiest way to set up your strategies, your pit stop strategy, would be like this. So I'm just going to load one up that I have here. Okay, so what I'm going to suggest is you have a practice setup, a quali setup, and then a race setup. So for practice setup, I've got 40 litres of fuel because we're going to do 30 minutes of practice. 40 litres of fuel, tyre set 1, and I'm using front brakes, rear brakes as 1. Now, if you're using 1, they should last you the whole race. So they're sort of designed to last 3 hours at maximum, so you should be right with that. So that being said, there's my practice setup. I don't really care about pit stop strategies. I'm probably not going to do one. So that's that. So save that as a practice setup. So I'll just do the same, save, go. Okay, so now I've got my practice setup sorted out. And then what I want to do for qualifying, we're doing 15 minutes of quali. So I'm going to back the fuel down to like 20 litres. And then I'm going to change my tyre set to tyre set 2. So I'm getting brand new tyres for qualifying. I don't care about the pit stop strategy. Again, I'm probably not going to take one. We're only going to get about 7 laps for quali, so no need to adjust that. You could change the brakes if you want a little bit extra braking capacity. That's up to you. You'll have to look up what the numbers mean. I don't have that on hand at the moment, but regardless, 20 litres of fuel, tyre set 2 for quali. So then I'm just going to go in and save a quali setup. So now I've got qualifying sorted. So the last thing you want to do obviously is the race setup. Now you've already used tyre set 1 and 2. So what I'm going to suggest is for this I'm using the Bentley, so I'm going to need like 95 litres of fuel if I'm going to do a stop on the first hour. So I want to start the car with 95 litres of fuel, and I want to start the car on tyre set 3. Brand new set of tyres, brakes are 1, both here and there. Now on this one, you need to consider your pit stop strategy. So that's what I'm going to start the race with down here. So let's say I'm going to pit on the hour mark, hour in, so I want pit strategy 1. I'm going to add another 95 litres of fuel, and I've already specified my cold PSI tyre temperature and my brakes as well. So that there is starting the race here, first pit stop here. Then what I'm going to do is set my number 2 pit stop to be the same amount of fuel and the same tyres and the same brakes. So now I've got both of my pit stop stints organised and set up. What I'd also recommend is having a pit stop 3 with 0 fuel, adding in your tyre pressures just in case. And this one, you would want to use this for the situation where you might have got some damage and you're not ready to do tyres, you're not ready to add fuel, but you just need to come into the pits to do just damage. So just keep that in mind there. So what I'm going to do now is go and save that as my race setup. Save. Alright, so that's all done. So I got all 3 setups for the endurance race this coming weekend. Now, that being said, you notice that for my race setup, I can only specify 1 tyre set here. You can't set the tyre set per pit stop strategy. So I'll just demonstrate now how you get around that. Right, so let's say we've done practice on tyre set 1, we've then done qualifying on tyre set 2, and now we're in the race. So let's just pretend now I've got my race setup loaded and I've started the race on tyre set 3. Alright, so let's just make sure that's loaded. Race, load, and you'll see at the top here it says setup race. This is just a way of checking that you're using the right setup. Another thing I might mention as well, this tyre wear, you will see that if you flick these around between tyre sets, this wear rate will be less than 3 if you have used the tyres. Alright, so let's just go back. Let's continue, pretend we're in the race. Start your car. Alright. Now what you'll need to do is make sure that in your controller area you have a button allocated to the cycle MFD, which will, I'll press it now. You can see on my left hand side of my screen it's toggling between a couple of menus, so off, and then this one here is real time, who's in front, who's behind, regardless of position. Next one is the leaderboard. The next one is my car electronics. You can see all that sort of detail in there. The next one is my pit stop strategy. Alright, so you can look at this anytime. You can look at this anytime in any session. But what I wanted to do is demonstrate the fact that down here I've got pit stop strategy 1 selected. So let's pretend again that I'm in the race. I've just raced 55 minutes and I want to do a pit stop. I started on tyre set 3, so obviously I don't want to use that again, and I don't want to use tyre set 1 or 2 because they're already worn a little bit from practice and quali. So what I'm going to do now is make sure before I pit that my pit stop strategy is 1. I can see there my fuel intake is going to be 95, and down here I can look at my tyre set. Now, as I said before, you couldn't set this in your pit stop strategy, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to flick that to 4. So when I pit, it's going to use my pit stop strategy 1, but it's also going to put tyre set 4 on, which is exactly what I want because there'll be a brand new set of tyres for my sort of second stint, I guess. So that's that. Now let's say I pit and that's all good to go. So the next time I pit, maybe at this 2-hour mark, I'm going to change this to pit stop 2 strategy. Still going to put 95 litres of fuel in, but then I want to override this setting here again to be 5. Okay, so now I'm going to use a fresh set of tyres and they will be my tyre set 5, and I'm going to run them till the end of the race. Alright, so that's all. Happy days, pit, everything. And once you've set that on the screen there, you just enter the pits and it'll do it. Now the important thing is down here, regardless of what pit stop strategy you're running, see how this down here suspension and bodywork is ticked. Now what I was saying before, if you have an accident and you need to repair your damage, what I would be doing is having pit stop strategy 3. You can see I'm adding no fuel. I'm gonna untick my tires and I'm pushing, it's up to you what button you allocate for this, and I'll go through this on Wednesday night anyway. But I'm just pushing left or right on my little toggle wheel on my wheel to tick that on or off. So let's just say I've had an accident. I'm setting my pit stop strategy 3, which won't do any fuel, won't change the tires, won't change the brakes. But you can see down the bottom here, suspension and bodywork are ticked. So all you have to do, say you're heading to the pits now, as long as suspension and body are ticked, you do your pit stop and they will only repair the suspension and the bodywork, and then you're off to the races again. Alright, so just to make that clear, so again, just to summarise, tyre set 1 for practice, tyre set 2 for quali, tyre set 3 for the start of the race stint, tyre set 4 for your first pit stop, tyre set 5 for your second pit stop. But you will need to manually change that as I've just described. Okay, hopefully that helps. Yeah, please watch this all the way. Hopefully you've watched this all the way through, and that will help you in the race. But any questions, if you've watched this before Wednesday night, any questions, we'll have a chat and go over some stuff if needed. Alright, thanks guys, see you later.